Your t-shirt began as a plant whisperer and a bone needle. From cave cold survival to runway status, clothing rewired how we live and trade. Who first twisted fiber into thread? When did fabric become chemistry, code, and climate control? We'll sprint from linen ghosts to sensing jackets and garments that grow back overnight. Ready to see how a snagged thread became a world system and what your next hoodie might do? Before clothing was style, it was survival, and the first leap was astonishingly small. Imagine a few wisps of plant fiber, twisted between fingers until the strands gripped one another. That simple twist multiplied strength and turned fluff into cord and cord into the beginnings of thread. With thread came the power to bind, to attach, to shape. Paired with animal hides, softened by scraping and smoke, those early cords stitched edges and created fit where draped skins alone could not. The bone needle, elegant in its simplicity, amplified the trick. A sliver of bone with a drilled eye concentrated force into a point fine enough to pierce hide and thread a line through it. Repeat the motion, and you don't just cover a body, you contour it. In cold regions, layered garments and tight seams mattered as much as fire. The immediate gains were practical: warmth, mobility, and protection, but the deeper shift was conceptual. Clothing turned into a system of parts, fiber, thread, seam, closure, that humans could iterate. Once people learned to twist, stitch, and tailor, they didn't stop, they refined. As communities settled and specialized, materials took on personalities. Flax, when redded in water to loosen its bark and hammered to release long cellulose fibers, could be spun into linen, cool, strong, and perfect for hot climates. Across the Nile Valley, weaving linen wasn't just craft, it was a measured technology. Spinners controlled twist, weavers counted warp and weft, tailors cut and seamed with intent. Early tailored garments proved that fit is ancient, not modern. In cooler zones, domesticated sheep put wool on the technological map. Each crimped fiber trapped air, turning woven or felted wool into portable insulation. It was the original performance fabric for rain and wind. Meanwhile, in East Asia, people learned to domesticate silkworms, coaxing a caterpillar to spin miles of continuous protein filament. Boiled and reeled, silk yielded threads impossibly fine yet strong, with a light-catching luster that turned cloth into wealth. Here, the what, cellulose and keratin, delivered very different how. Linen's breathability, wool's warmth, silk's strength to fineness. Materials weren't just substances, they were engines of trade routes, tax systems, and social signals. Threads had begun to bind economies together.
Tools amplified hands. The drop spindle, just a stick and a weighted whirl, freed the spinner to draft fiber steadily while twist ran up the strand. It's a pocket-sized torque machine. Looms stabilized warp threads so the weft could shuttle across in fast, reliable rhythm. And their architecture, backstrap, vertical, horizontal, matched local needs. The principle stayed the same: interlock at right angles to create fabric with predictable strength. But an essential bottleneck remained: spinning was slow. The introduction of the spinning wheel transformed the ratio. A large wheel stored momentum. A drive band turned a spindle or flyer. Twist came rapidly, and yards of yarn piled on a bobbin. Yarn supply finally began to catch up with weaving capacity. In parallel, cotton, cultivated and ginned by hand in South Asia and beyond, offered a short staple fiber that, once cleaned, spun beautifully into fine, washable fabric. Dyestuffs like indigo and madder added vivid, repeatable color. Guilds guarded knowledge. Sumptuary laws tried and failed to fence off status with cloth. The stage was set. With better tools, appetite for fabric soared, and the question shifted from, can we make this, to how fast can we make more? The 18th and 19th centuries detonated a chain reaction. A weaver's simple pain point, throwing the shuttle across whiter cloth,
led to the flying shuttle, which put the shuttle on wheels and rails so a single worker could weave broad fabric quickly. That productivity spike exposed a new bottleneck: yarn. In response came a cascade of spinning innovations. The spinning jenny multiplied spindles so one operator could spin several threads at once. The water frame harnessed a river's steady torque to draw stronger, consistent warp yarns. The spinning mule hybridized the two, producing fine, strong cotton that rivaled hand-spun quality at unprecedented volume. Steam tightened the loop, powering mills and machines on command rather than geography's timetable. Then weaving was mechanized outright by the power loom, which punched fabric out at speeds that rewired labor and cities. Another leap quietly bridged cloth to computing: the jacquard mechanism. By encoding pattern as a sequence of holes in punched cards, complex brocades became automatic, repeatable, and editable. Change the cards, change the fabric. Elsewhere in the chain, cotton gins tore seeds from lint in moments, feeding mills with clean fiber and scaling the cotton economy, with all its profound social consequences. Garment assembly modernized as lock-stitch sewing machines synchronized needle, shuttle, and feed dogs to produce durable, identical seams. Ready-to-wear emerged with standardized sizes. Finally, closures evolved from hooks and buttons to the zipper's interlocking teeth and sliding carriage, turning fastening into a one-hand, one-second action. By century's end, clothing wasn't just faster to make, it had become a factory-based, data-shaped enterprise. Machines dictated pace, patterns were codified, wardrobes globalized. Color and fiber chemistry reshaped what cloth could do. Synthetic dyes, sparked by an accidental purple, gave industry a palette that didn't depend on harvests or colonies. Suddenly, bright, color-fast hues could be specified and reproduced at scale. Fashion cycles sped up because manufacturers could match shade numbers season after season. Next came new fibers themselves: regenerated cellulose, rayon, dissolved plant pulp, and respun it as continuous filament, offering affordable drape and artificial silk. Petrochemistry stacked the deck with polyamide, nylon, that combined tensile strength with elasticity. Then polyester, that resisted wrinkles and dried quickly. Acrylic, that mimicked wool's loft. And finally, elastane, spandex, that stretched and snapped back, restoring comfort and body-fit silhouettes. Blending became an art. Just a few percent of elastane transformed denim. Cotton poly mixes balanced hand feel and easy care. Chemical finishing layered additional functions: mercerization to boost luster and dye uptake, sanforization to tame shrinkage, stain and water repellent treatments for spill-prone lives. For weather, microporous membranes, expanded PTFE films laminated to textiles let sweat vapor escape while blocking liquid water, creating breathable rainwear. Non-wovens and fleeces unlocked warm, lightweight layers from recycled bottles. Under the microscope, fiber cross-sections, polymer chain lengths, and surface treatments turned cloth into a designed interface with the environment. The promise was performance. The peril, we would learn later, was persistence. Synthetics that outlast wearers in landfills and shed microfibers into waterways. But in the mid-century moment, chemistry felt like liberation. Clothes could be lighter, stronger, brighter, and easier to live with than ever. By the late 20th century, the industry learned to think in files as much as fibers. Computer-aided design let pattern makers sculpt fit on screens. Grading created size runs with math instead of trial and error. Markers arranged pattern pieces to squeeze waste from every roll. Computer-controlled cutters translated pixels into clean edges at industrial rhythm. Then knitting machines began producing whole garments in a single piece, effectively printing sweaters in 3 dimensions. Seamless construction reduced cut-and-sew labor, wasted yardage, and weak points at seams, while enabling rapid iteration and near-infinite variation in textures and zones. Shoes, too, saw uppers knitted to shape, cutting glue and scraps. At the same time, a new business model raced ahead: fast fashion. By collapsing design, sourcing, and logistics into tight, responsive loops, brands could move an idea from sketch to store in weeks. Small initial runs tested risk. Data from sales floors triggered fresh cuts. Factories ramped and rerouted on the fly. Prices dropped, variety exploded, and consumers learned to treat clothing as near disposable novelty. The supply chain stretched across continents, following labor and specialization. The system rewarded speed and scale, exactly what the past 2 centuries had optimized, yet it also exposed frictions that earlier eras never faced so acutely. Mountains of post-consumer waste, garments too cheap to repair, and environmental externalities that didn't fit on a line sheet. And still, technology kept pushing forward. Digital printing put photographic color directly on fabric with minimal setup. RFID and barcodes made inventory traceable. Online platforms created real-time feedback loops between taste and production. In effect, clothing had completed its arc from hand-twisted fibers to a software-driven global manufacturing network. From a fingertip twist to a world-spanning engine, each milestone made the next one possible. Materials invited tools, tools birthed machines, machines scaled systems. With that foundation in place, the modern story isn't just about making faster, it's about making smarter. So where did these threads lead us today, and what might the next breakthrough look like when fabric starts to sense, adapt, and even grow?
Today's clothing is quietly becoming infrastructure. Sensors and conductive yarns slip into fabrics that can log motion, breathing, and posture without feeling like gadgets. Seamless knitting and on-demand cutting shrink waste while enabling fits tuned to a single body. Brands experiment with digital passports so a shirt knows its fibers, care history, and resale value. At the same time, the cost of speed is visible. Mountains of discarded garments and microfibers in waterways. That tension, smarter textiles versus heavier footprints, defines the present. We can make almost anything. The question is whether we can make it matter and make it last. Next comes a trio of super breakthroughs. Grow imagines bio-knit wardrobes, a mycelium cellulose blend that fills a reusable form like bread rising, then cures into a soft, repairable fabric. Miss the patch kit and torn elbows regrow overnight. Shift brings programmable color and climate. Fiber-level photonic layers and phase change zones let a jacket darken in sunlight, brighten at dusk, and open invisible vents when your skin warms. Cloud rewires ownership. Garments ship with scannable passports that unlock free repairs, guaranteed resale, and targeted remanufacturing. You keep a tight core closet while subscribing to seasonal swaps that are actually remade, not dumped. These aren't sci-fi costumes. They're pragmatic upgrades to comfort, expression, and circular flow. Picture your morning. You pull on a Shift shell, it senses cool air and adds a hint of warmth. Coffee splashes, beads roll off. At work, a snag appears. After dinner, the Grow pen sketches new fibers and the seam closes while you read. When seasons turn, you scan a tag and the Cloud app schedules a reknit, not a landfill. Ready to ask what that future demands from us and for us?
Clothing has always been a conversation between our bodies and the world. Now it's poised to answer back. As fabric learns to sense, adapt, and renew, the real shift isn't a new trend, but a new contract. Comfort without waste, expression without excess, utility without the throwaway tax. Imagine wardrobes that update like software, yet age like heirlooms. Garments that gather miles of stories, not piles of trash. The next revolution won't arrive on a runway. It will arrive the moment mending is magic, fit is personal, and ownership feels more like stewardship. If that future is within reach, the question turns to us. Which powers should we prioritize? Self-repair, programmable warmth, guaranteed remaking, or something wilder? And when clothes can keep you safer, healthier, and more honest about their own footprint, what will you refuse to wear again? So, what do you think the future of clothing should be? And how would you design it? If this tour stitched something new into how you see your closet, drop a quick note. Which era hit hardest? The bone needle, the jacquard punch cards, the chemical fiber boom, or the coming bionit future? Tell me which thread to pull next. Silk's secret empire, denim's global journey, or the zipper's long road to trust? If a friend would love this, pass it on. Type subscribe for more fast human deep dives. And if you're still curious, queue up the playlist. Start with fibers that change the world, or jump to how clothes might heal themselves.